For 11 local time, the radar scope lights up with fast-moving contacts coming off the Iranian coastline. Inside the Combat Information Center of the American destroyer, operators stare at green tracks multiplying across the screen one after another. Small signatures. High speed, low profile, closing fast. Outside, the Strait of Hormuz is still black under the final hour before dawn. Heavy oil tankers move slowly through narrow shipping lanes, their hull lights reflecting across dark Gulf water. The destroyer runs ahead of the convoy at steady speed, cutting through calm seas with white wake trailing behind the stern. Then another radar return appears. Then 6 more. The tactical display begins filling with moving symbols. The picture sharpens. Multiple fast surface contacts bearing 035. The report moves calmly across the room. No one panics. On the bridge, the captain steps toward the forward glass and watches distant navigation lights flicker against haze near the horizon. The destroyer is escorting 3 loaded commercial tankers through one of the tightest choke points on Earth. On one side sits Iran. On the other, Oman. The usable lane is narrow. Traffic spacing is tight. That matters. Nearly a fifth of the world's oil passes through this water. And now 45 fast attack craft are moving directly toward it. Inside CIC, the spy, one radar continues tracking every contact. Operators zoom the display outward. The Iranian boats are not approaching in one mass. They are spreading. 3 groups north, 2 groups east. Another line moving low and wide toward the tanker lane itself. This is deliberate. They are shaping space. A communications officer broadcasts the first bridge-to-bridge warning. Unidentified fast craft approaching coalition shipping lanes. Maintain safe separation. No reply. The destroyer holds course. That is the first message. Outside, dawn light begins to bleed slowly across the Gulf. Long gray shapes emerge from darkness as the convoy pushes west through the strait. The lead tanker cuts heavy water at reduced speed while the American destroyer maintains escort position half a mile ahead and slightly portside. Then infrared surveillance catches the first visual confirmation. Fast boats, low black hulls, white spray exploding behind them. Some are running without navigation lights. The geometry is changing. Inside the destroyer, officers begin reviewing rules of engagement again. Weapons remain cold. Tracking only. Warnings only. The mission is escort and freedom of navigation. But the pressure is real. One Iranian boat suddenly breaks from formation and accelerates hard across the bow of the nearest tanker. The massive commercial ship sounds its horn immediately. Deep, loud. The speedboat crosses less than 400 yards ahead before cutting away at full throttle. Unsafe maneuver. Intentional. Still no reply to warnings. Inside the CIC, another operator leans toward a screen. Additional emissions detected. The room stays quiet. The emissions are brief, intermittent, possible targeting radar sweeps. Not enough to confirm attack preparation. Enough to matter. That changes everything. On the bridge, lookouts raise binoculars toward the northern horizon. More speedboats are peering through the growing dawn light now. Their wakes stretch across the Gulf in sharp white lines. 45 contacts confirmed. The destroyer is no longer watching isolated harassment. This is a coordinated swarm. The captain studies the tactical display for a long moment before speaking calmly. Launch Seahawk. Below the flight deck, crew members move under red lighting as the MH-60 helicopter is rolled into position. Rotor blades begin spinning slowly, then faster, the engine sound building against the steel deck. Nearby, sailors secure equipment against the rising rotor wash while the convoy continues pushing west through tightening water. The ship keeps moving. That matters, because the Iranian boats are forcing decisions now. Every close pass, every angle, every speed change is designed to overload reaction time and pressure the escort formation. But the Americans are reacting with precision. Inside the helicopter cockpit, pilots review infrared feeds while deck crews signal final launch clearance. The MH-60 lifts off into humid Gulf air and banks north toward the swarm. Below them, the picture gets worse. The Iranian boats begin splitting again. Some move toward the destroyer directly. Others spread toward the tanker flanks. Another group runs parallel to the convoy at high speed, matching course and spacing. This is not random. Inside CIC, the tactical officer marks the movement pattern across the digital chart. The swarm is trying to stretch the escort screen thin enough to isolate the commercial ships. They came in hunting. The Seahawk crew stabilizes above the convoy and activates full infrared surveillance. Immediately, new heat signatures flood the display. Engines, weapons mounts, radio traffic bursts. One boat appears to carry tube-shaped launch equipment near the bow. The helicopter pilot reports the contact back to the destroyer. Inside CIC, no one overreacts. Identification first. Confirmation first. That is the process. Another warning is transmitted. Fast attack craft approaching coalition shipping. You're entering unsafe distance. Still no reply. The silence starts matching more than the words. Then one of the boats changes angles sharply and drives directly toward the destroyer's starboard side. Range begins collapsing. 3,000 yards, 2,500, 2,000. The bridge crew watches through armored glass as the dark shape bounces violently across the water, throwing white spray into the air. Crew-served weapons are visible near the bow. Inside the forward gun mount, sailors wait for authorization that does not come. Not yet, because the line has not fully crossed. At the last second, the Iranian craft cuts hard across the destroyer's bow instead of closing directly alongside. The maneuver is aggressive enough to force wake turbulence against the warship's forward hull. The destroyer never changes heading. The ship keeps moving. That is the answer. But then the radar picture changes again. Another operator turns toward the tactical officer. New contacts launching from Bandar Abbas. More boats. The room goes quiet for half a second. Then the calculations begin immediately. Speed, bearing, fuel estimates, intercept timing. The swarm is expanding. That is when the problem gets worse. Farther south in the Gulf, a carrier strike group receives the updated alert package. Surface harassment, coordinated swarm activity, unsafe approaches, possible targeting emissions. On the carrier flight deck, yellow shirt crews begin moving quickly beneath bright deck lights. F divided by a -18E divided by F Super Hornets are already armed and fueled. Pilots run toward aircraft through engine noise and jet exhaust heat. The response clock starts now. Back in Hormuz, the destroyer adjusts convoy geometry slightly, tightening escort spacing around the tankers. Merchant captains receive emergency maneuver guidance through secure maritime channels. Maintain lane discipline. Do not separate. Follow escort commands. Inside one tanker bridge, civilian crew members watch the swarm through binoculars with growing tension. Small black boats race across the water around them like moving traps. The pressure is real. Above them, the Seahawk circles lower and tracks one Iranian boat moving unusually close to the convoy's centerline. Its heading is wrong. Its speed profile is wrong. Then it accelerates directly toward the gap between two tankers. Inside CIC, operators mark the maneuver instantly. Possible penetration attempt. Warnings are broadcast again. No reply. The Iranian craft keeps closing. The geometry tightens. On the destroyer's bridge, the captain watches range numbers drop across the tactical repeater. He does not raise his voice. He does not rush the order. Signal maneuver block. The destroyer increases speed slightly and shifts position just enough to close the opening between convoy ships. Gray steel moves across dark water with controlled precision. The fast boat suddenly turns away. Not because it wants to, because the gap is gone. That matters. This is no longer about intimidation. It is about control of movement itself. Inside the Iranian formation, coordination starts becoming harder. Boats are spreading wider now. Some are drifting too close to tanker wake lines. Others are trying to reposition around the destroyer's expanding escort screen. Then the Seahawk crew detects another short electronic emission. Longer this time, more focused, possible fire control sweep. Inside CIC, every head turns toward the display. The line is getting close. The tactical officer forwards the emission data immediately through fleet channels. And 8 minutes after the first alert reaches the carrier, the air picture changes completely. 2F divided by minus -18E divided by F Super Hornets tear across the Gulf at low altitude. Fast, violent, controlled. The first thing the Iranian crews hear is engine thunder rolling across the water. Then the jets appear over the convoy itself, gray shapes moving just above the tanker masts. The sound slams across the strait. White spray erupts behind speedboats as several turn sharply away on instinct alone. Inside the cockpit of the lead Super Hornet, the pilot scans the entire convoy geometry in seconds. Tankers, destroyer, swarm groups, helicopter overhead. Targeting systems remain disciplined. No attack run. Presence first. Control first. This is not revenge. This is control. The second Hornet climbs hard in circles above the northern swarm group, while the first stays low across the convoy lane. Their speed changes the entire rhythm of the encounter immediately. Iranian boats that had been pressing aggressively toward the destroyer now begin widening spacing. Others reduce speed. Some break formation completely. The picture sharpens again. Inside the destroyer CIC, radar tracks stabilize for the first time in nearly an hour. The Americans now control surface tracking, air overwatch, and convoy geometry simultaneously. Then another aircraft joins the operation. High above the Gulf, AP-8 Poseidon enters the surveillance picture. That changes everything. The Maritime Patrol aircraft begins feeding a wide-area radar image back into the naval network. Suddenly, every moving contact in Hormuz is visible in one layered battlespace picture. Fast boats, civilian traffic, support aircraft, coastal launches, electronic emissions. The Americans are no longer reacting contact by contact. Now they see the entire board. Inside the Iranian swarm, the pressure begins reversing direction. One group attempts to reposition south toward the convoy flank, but the Super Hornets immediately shift overhead. The jets bank low enough for their shadows to race across the water directly over the speedboats. The formation breaks again. No weapons fired. No missiles launched. Still, the initiative is slipping away. That is the power of layered response. Inside the destroyer, electronic warfare operators begin selective disruption against Iranian coordination frequencies. Not enough to shut everything down completely. Just enough to complicate timing. One boat overshoots a turn. Another loses spacing. Two nearly cross paths at high speed before separating again. The swarm is losing rhythm. And the Americans see all of it in real time. The convoy continues west. That matters most. Sunrise now burns bright across the Gulf. Orange glare reflects off tanker hulls, while heat shimmer rises above the water. The destroyer cuts steady through the middle of it all, gray silhouette surrounded by moving wakes. Still no one relaxes, because the danger is still close. Then one Iranian boat suddenly accelerates directly toward the destroyer again, faster than before. Inside CIC, the contact flashes red on the tactical display. Range collapses quickly. 1,500 yards, 1,200, 900. The Super Hornet overhead immediately rolls into a low pass. The jet screams across the water just above the attacking craft. The effect is immediate. The speedboat turns hard away, bouncing violently through its own wake before retreating back toward the wider formation. The attack profile breaks. That is when the trap fails. Inside the convoy, tanker captains begin reporting improved maneuver spacing as the Iranian groups fall farther from the shipping lane itself. The destroyer expands the escort screen slightly and continues transmitting navigation guidance. Commercial traffic starts flowing normally again, slowly, carefully, but moving. That is the mission. Hours earlier, the swarm expected isolation and hesitation. One destroyer pressured by numbers inside a narrow choke point. Instead, they found overlapping systems. Radar coverage, air power, electronic warfare, escort coordination, constant tracking. The response came in layers. And layer by layer, the pressure campaign lost momentum. Late morning sunlight now fills the strait. The water turns bright blue beneath circling aircraft while the Iranian boats begin drifting back toward northern coastal waters in smaller groups. No sudden retreat, no dramatic collapse, just gradual disengagement. Professional observers inside the destroyer notice it immediately. Spacing is wider now. Approach angles are weaker. Coordination is slower. They came in hunting. Now they're falling back. The P-8 continues monitoring every movement, while the Super Hornets maintain combat air patrol overhead. Fuel calculations rotate one pair of jets south toward the carrier, while another section arrives to replace them. The launch rhythm never stops. This is what the platform was built to do. Inside the destroyer CIC, operators continue tracking the last close contacts leaving the convoy zone. Headsets stay on. Radar scopes continue glowing green in the darkened room. No celebration, no dramatic speeches, just calm control. Because modern naval dominance is not measured only by destruction. Sometimes it is measured by whether the convoy keeps moving. And today, the convoy never stopped. By afternoon, the tanker group exits the narrowest section of Hormuz under full escort coverage. The Iranian swarm remains visible only as distant radar returns near the northern coastline. The destroyer never leaves station. The carrier aircraft remain overhead. The shipping lane stays open. The attack has failed, not because the Iranian boats were weak, not because the Americans fired first. It failed because the swarm lost control of the battlespace before it could control the convoy. The destroyer held course. The formation stayed intact. The escorts never lost a picture. And over the Strait of Hormuz, the sky belongs to the United States again. So here's the question. Should the U.S. have pushed even harder, or was total control without firing the real message? Drop your take in the comments.